So this video is only of interest to Chris and Mike. I'm showing you how I'm going to secure my cables so they can't easily be taken again. So I'm all the way up at this end of the site, and the only cameras are all the way down here somewhere. I'm heading into the sun, so I won't be able to find them. There. So there's two little things up there. That's it. So all the way down here, you can't see shit. So this is my rows I've marked with a bit of red spray paint. You can see I've got this little section here, one full row here, and from here all the way down. This row was the cables were taken. This row they didn't take. So this one still has the cables running along the ground, and I want to secure those cables somehow. This new one I'll show you in a minute, but I'll show you how they took them. If I go to the neighbour's site, he still hasn't changed his. It's not connected. So the old boxes are these plastic boxes. They're not even locked, right? So you pop them open, flip the breakers, then you can see they cut the cables here. This was Just Home came and taped them up. So you cut those cables. Once they cut those cables, these ductings, they're not even fixed in properly. They're just, the cables come out and these are hanging free, and then they're just sealed, water sealed with putty. All they do is, look, they scrape it away. You can see the lumps of putty on the floor. Cut the cables here. And then on each power converter, if we go along to one, you see, cut the cable at the back of the power converter. This is the interesting cable to them. This is the one that's worth money. And then all they got to do is just pull it out of the ducting. And they cut each one all the way along. I mean, these are filled with water, you can hear, right? So it's a bit of a cheap way of doing things. Now I'll show you my one with the new boxes and how it's better. So this is my meter here, and that's my mains box. You'll see this one looks different from the others. I'll show you in a minute. So each row has its own breaker box. There's one there, and here's the other one. Right, let me pause that. So this is where the breakers are. Now this is a metal box, you see, and when it's closed, these hinges are concealed, and it's got a proper lock. You can't easily crowbar this open because it's got this metal thing which flips like that on the inside. So it can be got open if you want to, but it's going to take a lot of time, a lot of effort. So it automatically is a bit of a deterrent. And then the ducting now goes all the way up inside, and these cost something ridiculous like 5,000 yen each for these end pieces. But it means it goes up right inside the box and secures it. Now it's a pain in the ass to cut this. Again, not impossible. Time it takes to prise open this metal box and cut this, you know, you're already looking at what, half an hour's work. He's got to take someone else's. This is the socket I got him to put in so I can just power stuff when I come up here to do little bits of work by myself. Right, okay, now when the cable comes in from each power converter, previously these cables here used to go down and run along the floor. Now for my repaired one, this cable goes all the way up here and up like this. And what they've done is they've tied it. I'm getting a light here. Yeah, there we go. They've tied it all the way along. You can see it goes all the way down like that. Now that isn't exactly difficult to take off, but it's going to take time. You've got to undo each of these wire ties, and in the dark messing about, it's going to take a long time. So this row they're not going to bother with. All of the power converters, the cables run up. But a small row, there's not enough cable worth taking. That one still runs on the ground under there, and that goes out to the 4x4 panels over there. And then the big thick mains cable that connects them all to here, this is ducting, but this is short. So they've got to cut it, and they've got to power everything down from here first, get that box open, cut the breakers off. It's still live even in the night, because these power boxes are actively powered. That's why we have to pay. So that's a smart meter, it's got one in, one out. That's why we have to pay some. This is my mains breaker box to just power down the whole thing. This is the same thing. You'd have to get a crowbar in here and spend ages jimmying this open. From both sides, you can't knock off the hinges like you can with the other ones. The other ones you just got to hit with a hammer. One smack, it's open. And that's what they did to my previous ones, they just smashed it open. So already that's going to take a long time. Now this second row, this is the one which still has the cables running along the floor, and seeing as this site has been had the cable stolen twice, I'm going to secure them better. So I'll show you how I'm doing that. So there's two places we need to protect. Coming out of the power converter, this is the output cable. These are the input cables. These are worthless, not taking. These are from each panel. We'll have two, let's find one there. Two cables coming in. And of course, there's a whole bunch of panels to each power converter. So they all bunch up, and this is input. This is output. This is the cable, which is worth money to them. And then they can easily cut it here, like they did before, assuming they've actually powered it down from the unit down there. Then all they've got to do is just pull it out like before. So I want to find a way to enclose this whole thing, just to make it a pain to cut this cable and pull it out somehow. Then if this was all enclosed, the cable was still running along the floor, assuming they've managed to power it down, they could easily just cut it here and pull the cable out. So I want to enclose this as well, somehow. So I've already started work on the vertical part. I've finished the first one, and I've just filled it with expanding foam. Looks a bit messy at the moment, but it's going to be trimmed back. So I'll show you the final result later. So it's now encased in this metal cylinder, and the expanding foam I've deliberately sprayed so much that it comes up and it's clearly gripping this cable tight. If you cut that cable, it's clear to anyone you're not going to be able to pull it out of here. You'd have to cut it further down, and we'll come to that bit in a minute. So this metal enclosure goes all the way around. The tape's going to come off. The tape is just around the holes to hold the expanding foam in. Once this is dry and I've trimmed the foam back, I'll come and show you again how this looks. But first of all, I'll show you how to make one of these supports. So the materials are nothing complicated. This is just a 20 centimeter pipe, metal pipe. This is meant to be used for some like heavy duty aircon stuff or something. That was pretty cheap, like 1,000 yen or something. This is just thin wood. That's going to be used to make a mold for the concrete. There's my concrete to mix up later. And the rest is all just basic tools. So I've spent nothing really. And then I found this old cable reel I'm using as a table. And then the only tool I really need is my angle grinder to cut that metal post. And that's it. So the first thing to do is you need to measure the height of each of these from this base here to around here, so you can encase the wires at the top. So I already measured the next one, and I'll cut it with the angle grinder. Okay, so the next one has to be 53 centimeters. I've already marked it with a blue line all the way around. It's a little bit rough, doesn't have to be that neat. And now I'll cut that with an angle grinder. Okay, now that it's the right length, we want to be able to open this up, because I don't want to disconnect any wires or undo any of the frame on the rack. So I've made another blue line going vertically along it. You can just see it there. Cut that down and then it will flip open in half. Okay, now you can see after cutting it springs open. So now I want to take it over to the rack and cut out some portions for the posts to go through, the horizontal post, and also for those big cables to come out. And also there'll be a little hole at the top where the short cables, the input cables, will have to go in through the side. Okay, so this bit is very much just trial and error. Now that I can open the tube, I can test fit it round. It goes around the hole like that. So the first thing, I need to measure this inside part. There's this horizontal post here, and there's these black cables here. So I need to cut out a slot for all of that to fit through. So this exceeds 20 centimeters at around this point here, right? Which is about here. It's around 15 centimeters, give a bit of play. And it's around 50% of the diameter, bit of an angle. So if I cut out a slot 15 centimeters high, bottom of here, feed it halfway around and 1/4 way around here, same on the other side, and then test fit it again. Okay, so now that this bottom piece is cut out, it fits well around the bottom. There's plenty of space left for these cables, but this one at the top is getting in the way. So we need to cut a bit out of here like this, so this cable can come out the side. Okay, so now both holes are cut. I can fit it round, being careful not to catch these cables, and it will close back into a cylinder shape. So now I've test fitted it, and I know it's the right shape. I'm going to secure it around the pole. I do that with these. These are just those screw bands, so I can take them apart completely, fit it round, put it back through, and then tighten it, and then that will keep it nice and tight. Once it's filled with foam anyway, it will be rock solid. It will never open. And then finally, once the foam is trimmed back, I'll paint it in rust-proof painting. So now the bands are on and it's tight in place, and just to hold it still while I spray it with foam, this bit of wire is just holding it tight against the power conditioner, and then after it's filled with foam I'll take that off. So now I fill it completely with foam after just closing the biggest gaps with some tape, so I don't want the foam all just gushing out everywhere. Then deliberately I let the foam flow over the top like before, and then I'll trim it back and paint it. It might take a good day for the foam to go hard. This one down here, it's almost set. So it's getting a lot harder. It's still not rock hard, it'll get harder. And then I can just take all this excess off from around the outside, trim it nice and straight, and paint it. Take this tape off, and then it'll look good. So now I've covered up the worst of the holes with tape, so it's going to retain most of its shape and the foam's just not going to piss out everywhere. And now I just can fill it with foam. Squirt a bit in from the bottom first, and then fill it from the top, and then just leave it to set. And because the other one's taking quite a while to set, I think I won't try and trim them today. I'll just fill them all today and then come back tomorrow, and then I'll trim them and paint them. Not quite sure if this tape is going to come off clean or not. I hope it does. If not, I'll cut around it and then paint. That's 1 can. It's about 2 cans per support. Each can costs about, I can't remember. I think it was 500 yen. I'm gonna get the second one. Okay, this is can 2, which will be enough to fill the rest up. That's probably enough, because I overdid it a bit on the last one. So, about 1.5 cans. Last thing I did quickly on this one is I put some tape over this part, so I don't want the foam expanding up into the bottom of this power conditioner. Even though it's a massive cavity, it wouldn't be an issue and I could easily clear it out. It would just maybe save a bit of clean-up time if I control it. Alright, I've got one more to do today, although I haven't got enough foam to do it, so at least I'll cut the shape and then come back tomorrow. It's the next day now. I've come back, taken off the tape and trimmed off the excess. I only had a sawtooth blade, so this is a little bit rough, but it's okay, it does the job. These cables, they're nice and tight in here. You can't pull it at all. It sounds super solid. Right, you can tell that this is filled with foam basically. Anyone's going to look at this, and remember the cable they want to cut is here. So if they cut it here, they can't do anything. It's still exposed here, of course, but you've got to cut through this, and then you've got to take the cable out. And the next step is this whole thing along here is going to be encased in concrete. So once that's done, there'll be no exposed cable apart from here, and then you can't do nothing with it. I took the worst of the foam that was stuck around. It's a little bit messy in some places, but that's okay. It's not meant to be beautiful, it just has to be strong. And then, now that I've cleaned up all the mess, I'll paint them. I've got this rust-proof paint. There's this one here. This one made a bit of a mess on the pipe, that doesn't matter. Then the last one I did came out the neatest. Now that I knew what I was doing, just like that. So it's a very time-consuming, messy job. Not difficult, not expensive in terms of materials. Just it took me 2 days. Now that I know what I'm doing, each one to fabricate would probably take half an hour, maybe 45 minutes, and then fitting it and everything another 10-15 minutes, so probably an hour for each now that I know what I'm doing. Although I made a few mistakes with the foam. When I took the tape off, it was still wet because it needs to be exposed to the air to dry, so I had to respray parts of it today and wait for it to dry. That's why it's been taking me so long. So now I'm going to paint it, and then I'll do the concrete for these cables next weekend. And finally here it is painted. I just slapped the paint on quite thick. I painted both the metal surround and the foam. This is outdoor rust-proof, weatherproof paint. Comes in loads of different colours. I just chose red because I like red. Anyway, so basically anyone will take a look at this and then they'll realise they have to cut through this thin metal surround, which is not that hard, but it's going to take time. And then they'll have to cut through all the foam, and it's just not a 2-minute job like it used to be. And that's the main aim, right? It's to make it more difficult. If you want to take it off, it's actually removable. It's not that hard. If you've got the angle grinder, and then cut down this side, and then on this side you cut through the 2 bolts and those 2 rings, then the 2 halves will prise open, and then you'll expose the foam, and then you can just hack away the foam bit by bit if you needed to get to the cables, but you shouldn't actually have to, ever. Even when you replace the power conditioner in years to come, the cables are still there, so they can be reused. There's no need to change the cables when you change the power conditioner. And there's the 3rd one over there. And then next week I'll come and I need to dig a trench along here, pack it down with hard gravel, and then pour the concrete on top. I've already got the boards to make the form, so it will go all the way up to about here. So the entire thing, you're going to have concrete and then this, and there's just going to be nothing easy to pull out at all. So now I know what I'm doing. I reckon I could make 7 or 8 of these in a weekend.